Welcome to the Beyond Key podcast, where we explore how technology and data are reshaping business leadership. And today's conversation is going to focus on a critical shift that's happening in finance, moving beyond process automation to truly automating insights. And in order to have that conversation, we found someone who does this very well. I am joined today by Pasan Perera, who is the CFO at Knichel Logistics. He is a finance leader with nearly 2 decades of experience in financial strategy, analytics, and operational alignment. So Pasan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm ready to learn from you. We know that in our own experience, even working with finance teams, there are so many organizations that are already investing in automation, but then the business results and what they were hoping for, it often doesn't meet expectations. It tends to fall short. So to kick things off, where do you think that gap is right now?
Yeah, so most of the organizations are successfully implementing the automation. So data flows in, right? Where they have the gap is transforming that data to actionable insights. You might have a couple of reports here and there, but what you do with that data and then how you impact your day-to-day decision and basically the bottom line of the company is what matters.
Okay, so it's not necessarily a lack of data. It's knowing how to use the data, right?
Yeah, it's basically transforming the data into insights. Tell the story behind the data. Each data point has a story behind it, and it can be used in multiple different ways to enhance or improve your performance or identify an issue or fix something, right?
Mm-hmm. Can you give us a practical example of this? Maybe an organization and how they're automating insights so that a leader listening to this could think about what they should be doing differently right now.
Okay. Let me think about an example. So the good example is, I can take my own company as an example. So we had so many disparate data systems. So we actually brought in 5 different data sources together with the help of Beyond Key. They helped us build a state-of-the-art data warehouse and put everything together. Everything updates real time. So now the integration part is done. Data is coming in. What we do with that, right? So what we have to do is what matters for the company most. In our company, the gross margins matter, right? How much we make on each lane, each customer, so on and so forth, right? So what we did in our organization is creating a low margin report. Identify the bottom 10% of our loads that has negative margins. And then give it to our operations folks to take action on that. What happened in this case? In certain cases, you missed to build some accessorial or incidental. Or in certain cases, we really did an irreversible mistake. So then those are training points to the next level, right? So those things, if we don't take that piece and provide it to the operations to take actions, you will just have the report, but no actions. The report will produce every day, automate, give to somebody's hand, no action. So you have to have follow-up action with that too. So that's what I mean.
So that's what was happening for you before. You had set up all these reporting automations. Every month it was like you would just get it and maybe you'd look at it, maybe you wouldn't, but you were definitely not doing anything about the report and the data you were getting. And now you're actually able to see recommended steps and shifts that you could take in your business.
Yeah, and then you had to provide, you had to assign it to people and assign accountability. Then somebody is responsible for taking action. And then you have to follow up. The leadership have to take follow-up action in order to make sure that it is happening correctly, right? Then that drove us the results. So our gross margin improved over the time. So we, since we put that into practice, right? So the number of low margin reports dropped as a percentage, and you can clearly see it moving along. And then we identify the problems that needs to be resolved. You can go back to the customer, ask for a rate increase, or you get go back to the as the suppliers, vendors, negotiate better pricing, right? So those are the things that came out of that, right? And then subsequent actions. So that is what we call actionable insight. And then actionable insight is not useful until you take action on top of that. Yeah.
Of course. And then I'm guessing it's also important to know what type of results you're even looking for. So for you, it was really specific. You were paying attention to your profit margins. So how much you were actually keeping in every sale or order. And so you were able to look at that number and see how much your profit margins or losses in some cases were changing on a month-by-month basis, or how quickly did you see the results?
So we did it on a daily basis. So the loss margin allowance for the previous day will drop to a queue to be worked on next day. So everybody, because in our case, you have to take action right away, or otherwise, or be proactive, right? Otherwise, you won't be able to take action. The customers will not approve the extra charges, or you will not prevent a particular charge from happening, right? So that's what we were focused on. We identified when we put into the operations hand, then they were receptive. They know what to do, right?
Yeah, wow, daily. It must be exciting to see the improvements on such a rapid scale. I assumed monthly, but yeah, if you could start to see the needle move in real time that quickly, I'm sure that just makes you motivated to find even more insights that you can take action on. And I think that's a good segue to the role of finance within an organization. It's becoming a lot more strategic. And so how do you think these types of shifts are impacting the role of a CFO?
So traditionally, the role of the CFO is provide reporting to the shareholders and other stakeholders like banks, investors, so on and so forth, right? But now it has gone a step ahead by influencing those reports, what shows in those reports, right? So basically influencing the results. How you can influence the results through providing insights and being more strategic about what we do in terms of like for example, the same example, like a customer profitability or customer rationalization, or like the product rationalization. You can show which products are generating more profit or which products are generating losses or reduce the losses, right? So those are more strategic information that you can provide and make impact on the numbers that you present. So that's where the finance is going. Just instead of presenting the numbers, they are becoming partners to the operations to figure out how to improve the numbers.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to ask you a question about what type of changes are you seeing on a day-to-day basis for a role like a CFO? And I think you're a great person to ask. How much have you seen a change in your everyday workload, or the types of projects that you're working on, or even how you're planning out your day now that we're seeing AI and more automation and data being used in this actionable way?
So, for example, in my life, was after we implemented this data and insights and the automations, the reports start coming to me. So, I have the 4 different reports that I get on a daily basis, which gives me a overall overview of the company on a daily basis. Where are we heading? Do I have any problem here? For example, I get a cash flow forecast on a daily basis. I get my AR, AP, and then a dashboard that shows the key metrics that we monitor, right? When I see that, I can see everything. I mean, I can see everything on a phone right now. So I can see while I'm having my morning coffee, oh, what's happening today? What should I be focused on? If there's a problem that needs to be focused on, right? So those things, those insights, then I take actions based on that, right? On a daily basis.
So do you feel like you start each day not even necessarily knowing what you're going to work on anymore? You wake up and you look at the data, you look at your dashboard, and that actually informs how you plan your day. Is that how it's changed?
To a certain extent, but now I have my routine stuff that I normally work on. But if there's something that needs a special attention, it gets to me faster. Otherwise, I will find out throughout my the day or something. Then I'll be reactive, right? So I will find that out after month is closed, versus finding out now and fixing it. Then when I find it out after the month is closed, it might be too late. But now you're fixing it on the way while we are doing the regular transactions, and then I can tell or direct people who are responsible to make a change happen, right?
Yeah, just like getting ahead of the problem before it becomes a really big problem, which sounds like the obvious thing to do. But we also know that digital transformation, integrating this data, these new systems, these emerging technologies, these automations, that can be challenging for organizations to change in that way. What are you seeing as the most common challenges organizations face when they aim to go through a digital transformation like this?
So the biggest thing is the adaptation, right? For the adaptation, if you are bringing in a new system, the key is adaptation. Otherwise, it'll be there. It will be the nice and shiny thing for the first few months, and nobody will remember it, right? The adaptation comes from instilling trust on the system. So you have to build, with the transformation and integration, you have to build that trust. How you build that trust is basically tying it out with the source outputs, because most of these source systems will have a established output, right? And then when you bring in a new integration or bring multiple sources together, each piece have to be validated and trusted and signed off. And then the next key thing is leadership adoption. So the leadership should be willing to push this change, right? The leadership has to start the adoption. Otherwise, it won't trickle down, right? Because if the leaders are not using it or reluctant to use it or don't trust it, you won't have a functioning system at that point, right? So those are the key things, the key challenges that we have.
And when you say trust, what piece of it are you finding people don't trust? Is it that organizations and employees don't trust the technology will work? Is it that they don't trust in this vision that it'll actually make things better in the long run if they put up this upfront work? Where do you think the trust piece and challenge stems from?
It can come from various, all those items. It depends on what you are doing, right? The key trust issue comes from the data validation. If the data is not validated, if it is not providing the correct answers, the core outputs, right? So let's say your shift load count in our case has to exactly match, right? And then if it is not matching, the operations is not going to accept that, right? So in order to make sure that it's happening with our project, we spend a good 60 days just validating this data, right? And then testing it with the operations reports and make sure it ties out 100% to what is in the system, right? And after that, you once you are tied out with the cost of key metrics, then you can expand into the other areas.
Yeah, it sounds like you're being really thorough in the upfront work before just telling everyone in your organization, this is the new way to do things. Let's really make sure that this is going to be a way we do things for a long time. And the way you would do things for a long time is if they work, if they're actually improving important metrics and they're reliable. And I think that that's probably where a lot of organizations go wrong, is they're so excited about the potential of integrating a new system or technology that they're quick to implement it. And then if it doesn't work, then the next time you go to make a suggestion to your team and try to change things up, you're just going to be met with so much more resistance because they remember the last time that they stopped everything they were doing and they changed everything and it didn't work. So doing that upfront work, it sounds like, is really important. Are there other tips you have for organizations in terms of how they can overcome these challenges of trust and resistance to adoption, or anything else that's stopping them from effectively transforming using technology?
The main thing is identify the technology that works for your organization. Right? There are a ton of things out there, right? Like, for example, if your organization is a prominent user of Microsoft product, and if you try to introduce something other than Microsoft, sometimes it might, then there's a lot of adjustments to be done. I mean, it still can work, right? I'm saying I took that example since it came to my mind right away, right? So you have to get the complementary technology to your existing tech stack, right? And then if you are doing an add-on, right? Rather than if you're doing an overhaul, that's a different story. Then you can go to a different tech stack and then start everything over again, right? However, the biggest thing is, okay, you just need to make sure that you get complementary systems and then a familiar system. Then the adoption is much easier and faster.
Okay. And if you're looking ahead in terms of the role of finance, how do you see finance transforming even further within organizations? Where do you think your role is going to go in the next 5 to 10 years even?
So I think the finance will start adopting a technology, right? Like now, the Excel has been the key tool for a long time, right? So now it has graduated to Power BI and these other things, right? The next is AI-driven insights for financials. So AI, I think, in the future will help identify anomalies in journal entries, anomalies in certain payment patterns of the customers. I think it's still already doing it in certain instances. And then the biggest thing is like document validation and proofing. They are doing it in the current day too. So I think once with AI, it's going to further improve. It's going to further refine, and then you will have a lot of standard things automated, especially in terms of AP, AR, cash application. Those are the things I think will transform faster in the near future. And then it'll get adapted into the accounting systems. I think even in our accounting system, they also have AI enabled a journal entry, what do you call validation. Um, but for that to work, you have to have your data. So one thing with AI is you have to have your data right? I think most of the companies are going through a phase with this automation and data warehouses and all these things that are being built to bring the quality data. So that's also one of the projects that we are working through now to enhance the quality of our data to facilitate this AI predictive analytics and all these things. Because with wrong data, you're going to get the wrong predictions, and then you don't want to work with the wrong predictions, right? So that's where the future is going. So through enhancing the quality of data and then adapting AI to different areas.
I'm glad you mentioned AI, because with AI changing pretty much not only every industry, but then every role within organizations, it's making it harder and harder to predict what's to come and what we can plan for when we're thinking about our roles or our organizational needs. So thinking of the perspective of a financial leader, somebody who's in a role like yours, or maybe a director or a head of finance within an organization, and they want to move in this direction. They see that AI is coming, that automation is just the beginning in terms of what we're going to see next. What would be a practical step for them to start being on the cutting edge of this and really being leaders within their organization of making these things possible? Maybe you have resources for them that you loved. What kind of steps can we give them to start getting prepared?
So first, get your data right. You get your data straight, right? Okay. So that's the first step, right? Before you go into the AI stuff, right? You need to make sure that you have a sound platform to accumulate your data with high resolution, right? Then AI can be beneficial on top of it, right? So where most of the AI projects fail too is you don't have the correct resolution for AI. Then it's not the optimal case for AI, because it has to be trained with the correct data. So those are the first step, practical steps, and then selecting the platform and identifying the key processes that you want to implement AI, right? AI is not suitable for everything. It can do certain things. I think it will get there eventually, but at the current state, it's not suitable for everything. So we tried different things. It's not good for certain things that require human judgment. AI is not good at doing judgmental things. It is really good at doing visual and analytics, or reading through or accumulating knowledge and summarizing it and providing an output. But it is not really good at judgmental things yet. So before you use it for judgmental things, you just need to make sure your data is correct.
And I think that just brings us to the whole theme of this episode, right? Like, it's not just about automating processes. It's also about how you automate those insights, and technology can help us with those insights, but a lot of it is still human judgment. So is there anything you feel like we haven't had a chance to share that would be helpful for somebody who is maybe in your industry or in a competing industry in your role, who right now they're at that first piece? They are getting the reports on a regular basis, but they haven't done a great job at actually scaling the insights from these reports and being able to take action in a way that's really moving the needle in their business. Any final piece of advice that we could give that person?
So you have to democratize the data, right? So that's the word I use. You have to it's not excuse me, it's not confined to a limited group of people, right? You have to get the adaptation across the organization, and then you have to give it to the people who can take it and make use of it, right? There are certain excuse me, there are certain parameters that you need to take into account, because not everybody will understand it too, right? There is a level of understanding of each person, so you need to figure out what level in your organization who can understand and make judgments or make insightful decisions using this data. That's the level you stop. Like, let's say you have, like, for example, if you take a technology like Power BI, it is licensed per user, or you have to get a premium license or something like that. Before you invest in buying 1,000 licenses, right, you need to make sure who needs it, who is going to understand it, and then you need to have understanding of your people, right? And once you develop that understanding, you gradually layer this into those layers, right? So that's how you implement it, and then the other levels also will get the understanding. So that's how we deployed. So we used it internally with key people, and then we expanded it to the next layer. We expanded it to sales. Now we are expanding it to everybody. So that's how we, in our journey, that it was really successful expanding in that way, because your operational managers use it. Everybody is curious. You have to build the curiosity, or everybody is curious of how to use this new tool, right? And then you identify those curious people and who are able to use this technology or make sense of the data or the insights. Then that's where you provide this data to them. Yeah, that's when you provide them. Yeah, that's my advice. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you're almost looking for champions within the organization, people who are going to be ready to adopt these technologies, people who maybe have more of an open mind or more excited about what's possible, finding those people to be your advocates within the organization who are going to kind of be the leaders for others, which is my final question for you. You know, we've been really talking about the role of the finance leader, but who would be their allies within an organization to getting something like this done? You talked a lot about people. Should we be working with HR? Should we be working with a COO or an operations leader? Who should finance be collaborating with in order to really get adoption right?
The first ally is IT. So you have to have your IT folks, recommend and make sure they are on the same page, right? So in my past, I have had some experience where IT and finance did not align of the organizational needs. So you have to have the organization culture is also important, but the biggest ally, number one, is IT, because they are the ones who are going to implement this across the organization, right? So you have to have their buy-in and actually their recommendations, because they are going to do it. Then the second is operations, right? And then operations has to be your ally, because they are the ones who are feeding you the requests, right? And then third, I think sales and everybody will need all this information, so they will come in. Okay, they are consumers of your product, right? The financial reports or insights. In our case, we develop a lot of financial reports or financial and operational reports in many areas, right? So there are a lot of consumers. So they have to come in, and then every level of those organizations have to have their contribution in terms of providing inputs or making the building the platform, right? So those are the key stakeholders in this scenario.
I'm so glad we touched on that, because I think that is a really important piece. We can often focus on the end users and the end employees actually embracing this change and using it and making sure that they're going to adopt it in a way that's exciting and they are looking forward to it and feel optimistic. But if you're also not working with stakeholders at the top level and getting the leads of these various teams involved from the beginning, then you're going to have a whole other level of resistance that could slow the whole thing down. So thank you so much for sharing your experience. It doesn't sound like it's going to be easy, but it sounds like it's definitely going to be worth it. So thank you for providing that. And to our listeners, if you are looking to unlock more value from data and accelerate your decision-making, this show is where the real transformation begins. So we will see you in the next episode.
Thank you very much.